Hi everyone, it's Michael, and it's time for the December 2021 Orchid Collection update. I cannot believe it's 2022 already, and it's so funny because I keep hearing people say, this is really going to be my year. And, you know, the cautious part of me says, maybe you should start saying that 2025 will be your year, because who knows how long we're going to be in this bizarre chapter of history. But having said that, I hope that everyone had a very happy, healthy holiday season, and that you're ready to talk about some plants, because we have a lot to cover this month. Now, I did implement some pretty radical changes in my collection from last month to this month, and I previewed them in the last month's orchid collection. And what that is that I repotted many of my plants into classic medium. And that varies a bit, you know, whether it's a Paphiopedilum medium, or whether it's Fragma pedium medium, rhymes nicely, or Oncidium medium. You know, I kind of revisited classic medium for all of my plants. And the general breakdown of how I did that was I would take the appropriate potting medium and then I would put it into one of these containers. These are these nice little ventilated containers that I purchased from repotme.com. They're serving my needs quite well. I started with a very limited number of plants to see how they responded, and they all responded really, really quickly and very, very positively to the update. Which really reaffirms my thought process that the plants weren't necessarily struggling with just their hydration, they were also struggling with their respiration. They were having a hard time breathing. Particularly the ones that I was using classic medium in the glass container with drainage holes. You know, those two holes are not sufficient to create adequate air movement through the potting medium. The plants were suffocating. So it's pretty remarkable to see how quickly they've responded to this change because, of course, you know, the prevailing thought process is orchids dislike repots. They don't like to be destabilized in that way. But if you are significantly improving their ability to breathe and metabolize water, there's no real reason that they shouldn't respond immediately very positively. And that's kind of what I'm observing right now. Now, again, going back to the general setup, you get the plants repotted into these containers. From there, I put them into these adorable little bowls. These are actually Pillow Fort bowls from Target. They're $3 for a pack of 6. But I find that they're more attractive than classic plant saucers and cheaper as well. And then I put these are the little glass beads that I was using for cultivation in water culture. I just put them in the bottom so I have a nice little drainage area and also a little bit of ambient humidity. And then I put that right on top of it. So that's the general breakdown of what I've been doing. So after demoing it with a few of my plants and realizing that the plants were responding positively, I really started to implement those changes across a lot of the plants that have been troubled for a long time. Case in point, number 25 in my collection, my Epidendrum green hornet. So I actually have my Epidendrum green hornet right here, which is now, can you believe it, divided into 3 darling pieces. I will eventually put one of these in the store. One of them is already spoken for Zilla. Hey, I remember. But these are doing really, really well in this updated grow method. Now, the interesting thing about this that I didn't anticipate is how many glass jars I was going to have to shatter to get the plants out. And, you know, I took a video of it, so let me just show you. So I am unpotting number 25 in the collection. This is my Epidendrum or Pristicchia green hornet. It was so root bound that I actually had to shatter the glass. So I was wearing, obviously, safety gear for my eyes, and I was wearing gloves. But if you look inside, I had to just kind of take a screw and hammer on top of it just to make it crack. And then I was able to kind of wrestle away the container from the plant, but like, look how well established it was. This is one solid dense block, and I didn't realize that the roots inside of the container were also as vigorous as they are, but they are still very much clinging to the root system. So I'm gonna try my best to kind of massage this root system. First, I'm gonna verify that there's no shards of glass in it. And then I'm gonna massage the root system to try to loosen things up and then begin the process of separating them into divisions. So here we are after massaging the root system, after really allowing it to release some of that leca. I got them repotted and they all just seem so happy. They are all really, really thriving. Now the trade-off for this month is that in order to facilitate these kinds of changes for a lot of the troubled plants, I cut off so many flower spikes and it broke my heart. I cut flower spikes off of my Fragma pedium sedenii. I cut them off of my Epidendrum. I cut them off of my Bellara Peggy Ruth Carpenter. I'm very close to cutting off the flower spike from my Obsidian Twinkle. I just really wanted them to have a strong fighting chance at really investing in their root growth and their vegetative growth. So to do that, you know, I cut off the flower spike. There is one major exception, which I will show you shortly. But that's kind of what's going on right now. That's where I am. I'm transitioning the collection slowly but surely. I do think that my Phalaenopsis types and my Cattleya type orchids still really do enjoy the semi-hydroponic setup. So until I'm given a compelling reason to not, I will continue to cultivate them in that method. But other than that, I think I'm going to transition most of the plants to classic bark medium, which is a huge paradigm shift for me. I was a semi-hydroponics guy exclusively for so long, so very, very excited for that update. Now, in regard to how this is impacting how I'm caring for them, it's actually quite similar. I'm still flushing all of the orchids at least once a month, whether it's classic medium or whether it's semi-hydroponics. And in between those flushes, I am watering with a dilute nutrient solution. And I'm still misting the plants every morning and sustaining a strong source of moving air, which is the overhead fan. So it really hasn't even impacted the care for what I'm doing. And I do find that that bark medium seems to retain moisture for a period of about a week. So I don't notice, at least not at this time, a huge distinction in terms of how I have to care for them in this updated grow methodology. But remember, that is specific to me being an urban orchid grower. You know, I'm not doing this in a greenhouse, I'm not doing this outdoors, so that might impact it if you were growing in a separate environment or a different environment. So that's what I'm doing this month. Now, without further lead-in, let's just go ahead and jump in and talk about the plants that have something new, different, and interesting happening this month. All right, my friends, jumping in with my pride and joy, number 11, my Cycopsis mendenhallii. Now, the interesting thing about this one is I did not want to repot it. It has done so incredibly well for me in its old grow method. It was in the same container for almost 5 years, actually over 4 years for sure. But it got so densely packed that it started to strangle itself. And I noticed that some of the leaves were starting to die off as the new growths came in, which didn't concern me too much. But then what I noticed was all of the sequential spikes stopped blooming at a certain point. And I just think that's because the root system could not breathe and it was not able to effectively metabolize water. So that was really the observation that made me want to repot. Now, it was so root bound that I did have to shatter the container just like I did with my Epidendrum to get it out. But I did manage to get it repotted, and you can see if I take you into the roots, it has taken to it so quickly. It seems to really enjoy it, so much so that over the course of the past month, it has produced, I don't know if you can see, a fourth flower spike coming in. And that is so exciting. So I really hope that this continues to thrive. I think it is, you know, I think it's drinking more water. I think it is happier. I think it's able to expand. So I anticipate that these will start to rebloom shortly, but I'm watching this one closely. Moving on to number 13 in the collection, we have my Fragma pedium sedenii. Now, I was so nervous about this one not having the energy to make the transition that I cut off all of its flower spikes. And that was difficult because it had 2 sequential blooms on both fans. But I'm so glad that I did, because in the time after cutting it off, it seems to have received this potting method incredibly well. It's super vigorous, it's super green. The incoming fan on this one has really hit a stride and it's doing really well. And then it also put out a new fan on this growth here. So it seems to be, you know, taking this updated grow method and running with it. It seems very pleased, so another success story. Now moving to number 16 in the collection, this is of course my Dapper Dots glossy tavros catacetum. And what I want to highlight here is that it has a new growth coming in already. And that seems a bit early. It's so peculiar that we're just at the beginning of January, because typically it takes until about late January for me to see this new growth come in. But this one has been in dormancy since approximately October 31st. I usually do it around Halloween. But it's nice to see that it already has that new growth coming in. This year, instead of growing it in glass with sphagnum moss, again, really thinking critically about the plant's ability to invest in its respiratory processes, I'm going to put this in one of these containers down here, the one that I showed at the beginning of the video, to give it a little bit more ventilation, but I'm going to pot it in pure sphagnum moss. It's going to require more from me in terms of being really diligent about watering it and keeping my eyes on its moisture levels. But I do think that the plant will do better and probably bloom more effectively for me if I make that change. Now, quickly revisiting number 25, of course, I started the video by showing these 3 divisions, but you can just see the plants look so much more better situated. Before, the roots were growing out of either side of the plant. It was really desiccated because it was not able to support its new growths at all. And the new growths really were the ones that took the brunt of this, because the other The other growths were really making good contact with the medium and the moisture inside of the container, but the ones that had the roots overflowing outside of the container just really were impacted negatively. Now, another really interesting success story is number 43 in the collection. This is my Encyclia tampensis, and this is, of course, from the seedling experiment that was ill-fated. All of the other seedlings died because of various reasons, the travel, how I packed them. But this one has trucked along. It has seen attempts at semi-hydroponics, at water culture, at various grow methods, and it just never quite did much of anything. But now, let me take you into the base. Do you see all the new growth coming in? It's like it's been waiting this entire time to be put in this exact method. It's airy, it's breezy, but it's still getting regular contact with moisture, and it just seems to really appreciate it. So I'm hoping that this, has a second chance at life. I think that it's so radically different from anything I've ever given it before that I think it is going to do really well. Now moving to number 46 in the collection, this is my Obsidian Twinkle white pink, and just look how cute it is. These just started to bloom recently. And I just adore this plant. It's fragrant, it's lovely, but you can see it's really faced some negative impact. It is so densely packed into this container. It dries out super quickly. The root system of all of the new growths has sustained contact inside of the container, but it's not, I mean, look at it. Look at the discoloration. Look at the speckling. It is, I really think, strangling itself and struggling to breathe. So, I mean, it has been a consistent bloomer for me, but as I've said many times, just because a plant blooms for you doesn't necessarily mean it's healthy. I've also been holding off on repotting this one because I wasn't sure how I would get it out of the container. Again, it is so tightly packed. You can see the roots are super expansive. It's inhabiting every corner of the container with leca. So I just, also, I made an oversight with this beveled edge because it's so difficult to get the plants out of that kind of method. So this is gonna be another one that I'll have to shatter the container. So I'm probably gonna clip off this flower spike, as sad as it makes me, just like I did with all the other plants. And I might even divide it too, just to have a more attractive and shapely collection of bulbs. Not sure. Moving across the apartment briefly to showcase number 51, this is of course my White Wedding Day Phalaenopsis, and it is one of 3 that is either in spike or in bloom. You can actually see the other one right up there. These are so vigorous, they are so happy and healthy and so consistent with blooming, and just an absolute joy. And these ones, like I said earlier in the video, I think that Phalaenopsis tend to do quite well and that Cattleyas tend to do quite well in semi-hydroponics, so I don't see any real compelling reason to update their grow method. So just like this is how they're gonna stay. Moving to number 55 in the collection, this is my Funfetti Phalaenopsis. This is a keiki that I took from my mom's plant, and just look at how darling this little flower spike is. I just can't deal with it. It is so cute. I cannot wait to see this in bloom, and I can't wait to show you the blooms. They are so interesting and so stunning, and doing very well in just good old-fashioned semi-hydroponics, so that's how I'm gonna keep it. Now jumping to number 56 in the collection, I am so eager to show you this one because it's a perfect illustration of what happened to the plants that I transitioned to this grow method first, because it happened so quickly. Now this one I transitioned to this grow method maybe about a week ago, and what you can see is if I take you into this new growth, look how quickly and vigorously it's throwing down new roots, and it's not just that one that's peeking out. Let me come in closer. Do you see how there are several that have already gone and penetrated into the grow medium? It is very happy. It seems very pleased to have access to that moisture, but also to have access to air to breathe. And it's interesting because you can see that really reflected in the new growth. It is vigorous, it is happy, it is not discolored, and especially when you compare it to the previous growths, which always came in a little bit sullied in some way. This one is coming in just impeccably. So I'm so excited to see what happens when more and more roots make contact with the medium and it really is able to expand in the container, because I think this one has a much brighter future than it ever has. And last but certainly not least, I'm gonna showcase number 67, the rebel of them all. This one is just so stressful, but sequential bloomer, still very much in bloom. You just can't tell because it's, what are you, shy up there? It's just so tall that I cannot even see the spike anymore. It is hiding behind this ledge in my apartment. But I wonder how this one would do in classic medium. I bet it would do fantastic. I mean, honestly, it's not like it's struggling right now, but I'm curious to see how that change would impact this one. And with that, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much, as always, for choosing to spend a little time with me. If you have any questions, concerns, or feedback, go ahead and leave it in the comment section below. Be sure to support one another in the comment section because I'm so seldom available to do so. Don't forget to click subscribe and have a beautiful rest of your day. Mwah! Happy New Year, friends. Bye.